left off. Last time we were at access control list. We really made it through that in the security of the system. You know, primarily what you're talking about here is stuff that makes it through the firewall to the system. The firewall is the first line of defense, as we discussed last time. So if it gets through there, the next step is that the PBX has to determine which is real traffic and which is rogue traffic. Access control list is a great way to shut that stuff off permanently. Just kills it right away. The downside to that is, let's say you're doing remote phones and you don't know where they're coming from. If I have a remote phone and it's located at my house, I know what the IP address is at my house, and I can identify that in the access control list. I can just put it on the list and just make it part of the SIP rule, and done. I'm good. Where that doesn't work is, and one of the cool applications that people like to use a lot is the mobile app. That, let's say you have a soft phone programmed on your smart cell phone. You can use that soft phone on your cell phone as an extension of the PBX. The problem in using the access control list with that scenario is that there is likely going to be multiple IP addresses that your cell phone extension might be coming from. Now, there's really two ways to take this. On a cell phone, you can make a cell phone a part of the system just by sending calls to the cell phone number and allowing that number to invoke transfers. And that's pretty easy to do if you're wanting to set that up under the PBX General page. You can set up outbound transfer numbers. And, if I wanted to put a cell phone number in here, obviously that's a row or an example. But if I have cell phone number 941-555-1212, I can make this a part of my system by just sending my extension calls, Paul Falanga at extension 220. I can set this up to enable it over a follow me forward for my extension, and make that cell phone number part of where those calls are going. And this is probably the most used application of integrating a cell phone into the system. And the plus about doing this is that you're utilizing this number which is the cell phone carrier number. And it will have higher priority in the cell phone service lineup than will a soft phone that is part of the data plan on a cellular telephone. So the difference between those two models is that you have, the soft phone, and soft phones are, anything from what resides on a PC to what resides on your smartphones, Android. The only one that never had a soft phone that I'm aware of is BlackBerry. BlackBerry never implemented a soft phone. So if you've got an iPhone or an Android, you can install a soft phone on those products. The downside of that is that when you're using the cellular network, be it 3G or 4G or whatever it might be, the data circuit gets less priority than the voice circuit because it's a cellular service. When people deploy soft phones on a cell telephone, I generally recommend that they utilize the soft phone only in an environment when they have Wi-Fi connectivity to whatever network they're joining. So one of the applications that I like to recall in this type of application is the use of the president of the company here, Nick Branica, when he travels to China, where the factory is that they make our phone. He can register to the Wi-Fi network in the airport, or if there's a Wi-Fi network that's up at the factory, he can register his soft phone there and make a call on a local connection. He can make basically an intercom call from his extension on his soft phone to an extension in the office, and he's making a point-to-point call with no cost. And it's a pretty cool app. But that being said, the use of a soft phone on a cellular telephone is best done on a Wi-Fi network only. If you're deploying this and you're utilizing a soft phone or even a remote phone that is mobile. Let's say you have a remote phone that goes with a salesperson. He's got literally a desk telephone that he's going to take out to various client locations and show people the operation of the telephone. You're not going to be able to use the access control list because you're not going to know what IP address he's coming in from. So you would have to disable or just click on or check X out and delete the SIP service and any access control list monitoring on port 5060. The backup step for this in security is a feature that we call log, watch, and ban. And the log, watch, and ban, right there it says, it enables the log, watch, and service to monitor for 5 times in a short period. It will ban it for 5 days or until the PBX is rebooted. Or let's turn it on. And there's another option here too. If we turn it on and log, watch, and ban is on, I can reload. I can press this reload button right here, and that will, let's say that someone has been banned because they've had rogue attempts to access a port on the system, 5060. And they've unsuccessfully done that 5 times in a row. They're banned. We can reload it here. So you can either wait 5 days or hit the reload button or reset the PBX, and that will obviously reset the log, watch, and ban. What that is looking for is for credentials, and that's where, let's just pick any one of these phones. That's where you're going to want this password to be extremely good. In order to make sure that rogue attempts are stopped. You never want to have a password of the word password. That's just the simplest and silliest thing to ever probably do. And unfortunately, a lot of people do that. But I don't know, several versions of software ago, I mean, it's been a year, or at least over a year, we've had a generate button here now that generates a completely strange number that is, or code that is not easy to duplicate. And that's something that you should do. Just hit something that looks completely wild. Make sure that you've got the actual code verbatim installed in your soft phone, and then that will register to the system when it tries to on 5060. And obviously here again, that phone needs to be a WAN phone because it's going to be coming at the system from a public IP rather than a local area network IP. Okay, so that is log, watch, and ban, and these basic things, actually these very fully engaging things are stopgaps to make sure that you don't have rogue attempts. And this is something that is very important in IP telephony because there are people out there that are looking for 5060 being open, and they will attempt to access and use whatever services you have available if they can get in. So they will try. So it's very important to implement these security measures. Here again, first line of defense is your firewall. Even before we start this list is your firewall. And then access control list and log, watch, and ban service controls and stops traffic at the PBX from going any further. Okay, one of the other things that you should deploy when you're installing the system is the time server. And That's really pretty easy to do. I found one that is relatively easy to look at. Remarkably, Verizon doesn't do as good a job with this as Comcast does. So I just want to show you what Comcast has. We have two services in this building, Comcast and Verizon. We use two different platforms. So what I really liked about this on the Comcast DNS service is that, oh, this is for DNS. This isn't really time servers. I'm sorry, I went down the wrong track here. But since I'm here, this is your DNS server lookup, and you should be getting a copy of this from whatever ISP is delivering service to your point of presence. And you should get a primary and a secondary DNS. And a DNS information is very important. It is part of the networking setup. You're going to want to make sure that you have the DNSs installed correctly. Now, obviously, this is a demo system, so the best I can do for DNS lookup is to point it at the router that I have hooked up. And the router is probably going to be your third choice. Whenever you're deploying the system, you're going to want to use, let's say we go down here and we find, I think it's Tampa is going to be our closest because we're in Sarasota. Oh, no, Tallahassee is our nearest DNS location. I'm going to want to take that information and copy it and just paste it in into this as the first DNS lookup. I'm not going to do that obviously because this is my demo system, but you'd want to put the first and second choice, and then the third choice should probably be the router. You know, you would put what is up here, you would put down in this space here, so that if for whatever reason these lookups fail, you're going to go to the router, which may have a different DNS setup. Typically not. It's going to have the same one. But with a first and secondary thing, you typically don't run into that kind of a problem. The time servers are obviously a very important piece of it as well. Let's just go back to Google. And you know, finding a time server is also pretty easy. Let's see, NST Internet Time Servers, right there. This is a listing of where they are. You'd probably just want to pick one that's close to you, and that will suffice. The real key, I think the one that we use all the time is this one here. This is a global address for all service, time.nist.gov. And this is going into the PBX setup. I believe it's under services. No, it's general. Here it is, right here. This is the one that we use at default. And it is important to make sure that you have a time server designated. This time server is across the board important that it be deployed and be the same server in every device that you're deploying on a system, whether they be remote phones or local phones. And if you set up a remote phone on the local area network first, it's going to receive this information that you have programmed in ahead of time, so that when the phone is configured and provisioned, it receives the server location, the external IP, the public IP of the point of presence, and the time server, so that it gets the information that it needs in order to be in sync with the PBX that is providing all of its functionality. So very important, and something that's very easy to find. You can pick one of the other ones, or, you know, obviously a lot of people use this one, time.nist. But this information is readily available, and it's very easy to find, but it's too easy to overlook as well. Often we look into systems, and this will not be set. And you'll have just strange anomaly problems that go on associated to the lack of a good time server. If you don't have a time server programmed, you might see BLF's keys not working just because they're out of sync with their registrations. Very strange things go on when you don't have time servers set among all of the devices that are communicating with the server. Okay. All right, configuring a remote phone actually is real easy to do, and I'm gonna excuse me. I'm gonna open this. I'm gonna open up the channel here. We don't have that many people on. There's only 12 of us on today, so we had some people that committed and then dropped out. But in any case, if there is somebody out there that would like to configure a remote phone, I'd be glad to step you through that at this point. It is a common practice, and that's why we want to go through it. I'm going to go through it here. If you want to do it there, all you would have to do is to load a soft phone, like I like Ninja Lite. Where did Ninja Lite come up at? Oh, it crashed. Well, that's not cool. It crashed. My Ninja Lite is not working. Okay, well, that's not going to work for me. It's gotten a lot more difficult. We used to like to tell everybody to go to Counterpath and get the X-Lite. And X-Lite it's a nice product, except it's extremely difficult to get to anymore. You keep pressing the download, and it keeps you taking you to things that they want to sell you. So if you can figure out how to navigate this and download an X-Lite, you would be able to install that soft phone on your PC and do the same thing as I was just trying to do with Ninja. In any case, let's go through the setup as we would. In the event that you're installing a telephone and you intend to make it a remote phone, I think it was on 330 when I did that. Well, it doesn't matter. So we'll just pick the 330. Let's see if we have one installed here. I'm going to go to the monitoring page, and I'm going to see what I have connected and running. I have a 330 that's running, and it is currently a LAN phone. I do have 621 that is a remote phone, and you can tell that very easily by the monitor page. As we're reviewing the monitor page, I can see the IP addresses that are associated to the extensions that are registered to this PBX. On this page, then, I can see that this is definitely a public IP. So extension 621 is at actually the main office public IP, which is IPitomy. It's 7264.129.45. I'm going to take 330 and do the same thing to that phone. Now, here again, the preface to that is that under the time server, you have something set. Okay, you have a time server set. And in addition to that, under SIP, we have the external IP that is associated to the PBX server that this telephone is going to be associated to. Since these things are set, I now have the ability to go in here and make one of these changes to the telephones that are installed. So if I go into 330 and just see what the configuration is now, I can see that it's a model 330. Right, here's the model. And the host is dynamic because it's coming from any specific destination or location. We don't know where it's coming from. But I need to change this. I need to change it so the server expects it to see it coming from an external IP. If this is not set, the server will deny access. And this is as far as you need to do settings on a, let's say you're doing a soft phone. If you're doing a soft phone, you don't need to go any further the WAN setup. It's important to identify it in the server as being a WAN telephone so that the server knows that it's coming from an external IP. But if it is a IPitomy HD telephone, there's a little bit more settings that you're going to need to do. Not only do I need to do this, which is the overall server setting, but I need to hit this button which is Settings, which goes to the phone page. And I'm going to show you two different directions to get to this phone page. See at the top here it says Edit Phone Configuration. Now I'm editing the settings for the extension itself. I'm not into the, this is actually extension settings, whereas the other page is PBX settings. I'm going to back up now. I'm going to go back to extensions. This is where I had selected 330 initially. When I selected it initially, I chose this button, which is this button. It's a pencil, and it will edit the PBX settings for extension 330. I can go to the same page I was on. If you notice, the caveat there changed just a little bit. It says now edit phone settings for extension 330. So when I hit that button, it's going to take me to that same screen that we were just at by navigating from the PBX settings for this telephone. So there's two ways to get to this screen, but I just want you to know that it's the same screen. What you need to set up on this now is that under the SIP network and settings, you're going to need to set the SIP location for this telephone as being a WAN. And notice that right now it's set at the local area network IP. Okay, when we do the save and come back to this screen, that's going to update, and it's going to have the information that's already been previously installed or programmed into the SIP global settings under PBX setup. Now, the other thing that we're going to have to do is, because it's a remote phone, we can't have it following the server anymore for this DTMF mode. So we're going to select the specific DTMF mode that we like to use for these telephones, and that is RFC 2833. It's a very universal spec that is adopted for DTMF transmission. The time server setting, notice the subtle difference between this. The use PBX as time server is no longer valid because this is going to be in a remote destination. So we want to use the PBX time server rather than use PBX as time server. What that's going to do then is it's going to associate the same PBX time server that you have set up in general, and it's going to insert it into the telephone. So another step that you have to complete too on remote phones, you have to change the configuration updates from TFTP to HTTP. Here's where it gets a little bit tricky, and you have to just watch what's going on here, because typically the web port for accessing a web GUI, an HTTP graphic user interface, is port 80. Well, that's not going to work in our case because I have set that up to be port 8080, and I'm going to navigate now, 8081. If you notice on the PBX, that says it right there. I'm at the PBX right now, and to get to the GUI, or this page on the PBX, I have to go to port 8081. So I've got to specify that in the phone configuration in order for the telephone to be able to navigate to the PBX to receive updates and configuration changes. Where that comes in, I'm just going to look at that real fast again. Public IP, we're going to navigate to it, and we're going to navigate to port 8080, which is the router at that location. And if I go to NAT, let's see. This is where I am designating it as 8081 is going to go to the PBX on the LAN, and it's going to go to the PBX on port 80. So that's where all that's taking place. So now that I have that, and I'm going to hit Save and Configure, and basically that's going to save the information to the telephone. I'm going to go ahead and apply changes, which in apply changes, what I'm doing is I'm actually writing it to the file that's stored on the PBX. And, excuse me, I'm catching a bug. Permanent record now on the PBX TFTP files that we talked about, I think the first day, or the first session, that file is now been updated, and it has the new information that this telephone is now a WAN phone. Now, notice, typical to graphical user interfaces, this page is not updating. I have to navigate away or refresh it, and navigate away and back to it, or refresh it in order for it to give me the new information. That is the public IP and the time server that has been programmed in these other database areas that we mentioned previously. But you can see now that this makes setting up a remote phone relatively simple, because now it has stored this information in that telephone so that it can navigate to the PBX and find the information that's needed. Now, I'm going to navigate to a local phone here so that you can see where that's set up. If I navigate to the telephone I have right on my desk here in front of me, it is at 192.168.2.226. The default username and password for logging into a telephone is root. And if I go to auto provision on this page, it's over here. On this telephone, notice that it is a TFTP, and it is registering to the PBX, and that is where it's getting its information. If I configure this telephone for a remote phone and go through the practices that I have done, all of that information that we saw here, the WAN port, the PBX time server, the port that it needs to go in on, that is all going to be populated in here. In addition to that, we're going to have a username and password that allows the telephone to get updates remotely. And that is set under Phone Global, PBX Setup Phone Global. In fact, right now it won't allow a telephone to download it, so I'm going to change that to yes. But the username and password, very simple at default. You can change it, but typically you don't need to. Save these changes, and now this PBX will allow this telephone to retrieve information from the PBX server.